So I've had a whole bunch of you ask me, what do I think of Advanced Warfare? Am I planning on buying it? What am I going to do with COD versus COD? And just in general, how am I feeling about the game? So in this video, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the game. This is just going to be the multiplayer component because that's all I've played at this stage. I've sunk about 20 hours into it, which is not nearly half of what some COD enthusiasts or hardcore players have sunk into the game already. But I think it's enough to give you my general thoughts on the multiplayer, whether I think it's good, what I think is not so good, and yeah. And just like in the past, we're going to start with the things that I like about the game and then move on to the things that I don't like. But anyway, let's get started on things that I like about the game. First and foremost, being a new or a next-gen title or something that was developed specifically for next-gen, I think it's a pretty good looking game. I don't think it pushes the hardware particularly that hard. It's still, it's still using the same engine. Well, sort of. I mean, from what I understand, Sledgehammer went back to the drawing board and used an earlier version of the Infinity Ward engine to build this one. So visually, it's definitely the best Call of Duty I think we've had to date. But having said that, don't expect it to win any awards for best looking game on a next-gen platform. It definitely feels like Call of Duty. Like I said, they've sort of gone back to basics in terms of the engine. Obviously, we have the exo-suit movements in there, so you can now dash, you can double jump, which definitely adds another layer to the game. And it definitely takes some getting used to. I'm still not totally across it, and I'm not totally 100% happy with the way that you have to do some of the dashing, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. One of the things I think is a real stroke of genius in this game is the upgradable score streaks. So in the past we've been able to choose which score streaks we want, but in this game you can choose to have 3 score streaks, or you can have 1, or you can have none, and you can upgrade them so that they're better. So for instance, the UAV, the standard one, just flies around, pings players on the map, works like you would expect. You can upgrade it for another 50 points to last longer, or to the ping to be faster. If you want to spend 300 extra points, it will work like you can see enemies through walls. If you want to spend another 300 on top of that, you'll put it into orbit so that it can't be shot down. So if you want to, you can make it super, super powerful, but the more powerful you make it, the harder it is to achieve. And I think this is such a ridiculously good idea. There's something for every level of skill as well. I think for players that don't necessarily get beyond sort of a 5 or 6 score streak, there's still stuff for you to unlock and use. My general feeling on the score streaks though is that they're kind of difficult to earn, and I think that's the general consensus I've heard from other YouTubers as well. And I think that's a good thing. It keeps the gunfights front and center and keeps the action focused on the one-on-one engagements rather than someone earning an all-powerful score streak and just going on a rampage. I definitely feel like the assault rifle class is the most balanced and the most all-round, and most people seem to be running the assault rifle class. But having said that, in the right scenario, the SMGs can absolutely melt people up close. I've played games where there's been crazy snipers, and obviously the LMGs and some of the other heavy weapons are quite interesting. The Pick 13 system is pretty much like the Pick 10 system from Black Ops 2. I can't remember what the version was in Ghost, Pick 11, Pick 12 or something like that. It's very much like it was in Ghost or in Black Ops 2. More like Black Ops 2 though. I found the Ghost system quite confusing. The UI didn't make it abundantly clear what you could and couldn't do. Whereas with this game, I find it very straightforward. You know exactly what you do, and it does nice little things that, say you're on a weapon and you've already chosen 2 attachments. If you go to add a third one and you don't have primary gunfighter active, it will automatically set up that for you. So it's very forgiving in that sense, and I think it will let players who aren't familiar with the system get used to it much, much faster. Another feature that I think is really, really cool is the new gun range mode. So one of the things that most Call of Duty players will do in between rounds is go into create a class and start playing around with their custom classes, changing guns, attachments, perks, and so on. I'm pretty sure every single player does this. The gun range mode is a really cool idea. Basically, on the PS4 you press option, and from the creator class it takes you directly into a gun range, no loading or anything, with the gun that you've got selected in that class, and you can try it out. So for instance, if you put a foregrip on and you want to see what the effects are on recoil, quickly slap it on, go to the range, fire against a wall and see what the recoil pattern is. Very, very useful, and I've used it a ton of times to do stuff exactly like that. Moving on to maps, I think the maps generally speaking are good. There's only one map which I find a little bit annoying, which is, I don't know the names of any of them yet, but it's like a jungle one with temples and stuff like that. I think visually it's quite a nice looking map, but I found that every time I've played on it, it's just been a snipe fest. So I guess it's great if you're a sniper, but I found that you'll just run around the map normally and get sniped from various different angles, and it can be quite frustrating. It's quite a vertical map as well. I think if you turned off the exo dash and jump abilities that you probably wouldn't be able to navigate this map on normal mode. Which, that's another thing that I'd like to mention, is that they've added a classic mode or a normal mode where you can play basically without the exo dash abilities. So if you're not totally into that new mechanic, you can play without it. God only knows why. I'm going to really struggle going back to the old Call of Duties, actually, just because I love the new dash mechanics so much, and it's going to make them feel so slow, particularly Ghosts. Some of the maps have got some cool features too, like halfway through the maps, one of them, like a new area opens up and everybody's got to migrate into the new area, and I think if you don't make it, you die. And there are map-specific score streaks as well, which is really cool. One of them's got like this track above the streets, and then if you unlock the score streak, it's like a big gun turret which you can drive around and shoot people, which is a really cool idea. Overall, I definitely feel this game is way more epic than past Call of Duty games. I think coming from Ghost, that's not necessarily a difficult achievement, but just the new boost mechanics allow so much more variety. The game is so much faster, and oddly, even though it feels like a new Call of Duty experience, at the same time it still feels like an old school Call of Duty game. Now we'll just move on quickly to some of the things I don't like, and there really isn't that many. I mentioned earlier on in the video about the dash mechanic, some of the stuff I don't like about it. Now the only thing I don't like about it is how you have to do it. Basically it's a similar movement to the run mechanic. So on the default setup on the control pad, you have to click the left analog stick in and you'll run. If you do that while pressing a direction, so left, right, or backwards, you'll dash in that direction. And you can also dash forward if you're jumping. You can't dash forward normally. I found that the back and the forward works okay for me, but for some reason clicking left, like down and left or down and right, is really, really difficult. So I found that dashing left and right isn't so great. I think possibly I'm quite used to using a controller where I had run set up as an actual button. So perhaps if I get a SCUF or another programmable controller which allows me to do this, this would be less of an issue. But not really a big deal, just a minor gripe and something that's very specific to the way that I play the game. And the last thing that I'll talk about that I wasn't completely happy with was the lag compensation, or the rubber banding that happened in the multiplayer. It's not so much a big deal now. I definitely noticed it in the first week, and that's something that seems to happen with all Call of Duty games, that during the first week there's connection issues, lag compensation seems to be a bit over the top, and spawns seem to be a little bit wacky as well. But like I said, in the last week or so that I've been playing, I haven't really noticed any lag issues or much less lag compensation. So yeah, overall I've been really happy. So I guess the big question that a lot of you will be asking is, should I buy this game? And I guess that depends on a couple of factors. If you're a Call of Duty fan and you've enjoyed pretty much every past Call of Duty game, I cannot see why you wouldn't enjoy this. If you're someone who used to play Call of Duty and you've bowed out of the franchise because all the games feel the same and you really want them to do something fundamentally different, I don't think this is going to be different enough for you. The dash mechanics definitely add something new, so I don't know, again, maybe give it a go, but generally speaking, it still feels very much like a Call of Duty game. So if that's inherently something that you don't like about Call of Duty, then I don't think this is going to be any different. Anyway, I'd like to know what you guys are thinking. If you're playing the game, let me know what you're thinking about the game, particularly if you're playing it on last gen, so on 360 or PS3. I've heard from a couple of you guys your experiences so far, and so far it seems to be running quite well, but I'd like to know what features are missing from the past generation versions, and any other quirks that you guys have found along the way. But other than that, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I want to thank you for watching, and yeah, I'll catch you later.